Hello and welcome. We're glad you could join us today on this new channel, a place where we hope to explore some of the more fascinating, sometimes puzzling, and perhaps even world-changing topics together. Many of you watching have lived through incredible times, decades of profound change, technological leaps that once seemed like science fiction, and moments in history that shaped the world we live in today. You've seen narratives shift, secrets come to light, and you understand that sometimes the truth takes time to surface. That's what brings us here today, to look closely at a story that, if true, could represent one of the biggest shifts in human understanding imaginable for generations. Really, since many of us were children looking up at the night sky, the question has lingered, sometimes whispered, sometimes debated loudly. Are we alone in this vast universe? It's a question that has often been relegated to the fringes, hasn't it? Movies, science fiction books, maybe the occasional blurry photograph or late-night talk show discussion. For a long time, it felt like a topic serious people didn't really touch. But something has been changing, especially over the last few years. You might have noticed reports in the news, clips released by the Pentagon itself, showing, well, something unexplained zipping through the sky, baffling our best pilots and our most advanced technology. Congress has held hearings. Suddenly, the conversation is moving from the fringes towards the halls of power. And into this changing landscape steps a man named David Grush. Now, it's crucial we understand who this individual is before we even delve into the extraordinary things he has to say. Because this isn't someone calling into a radio show with a story about lights in the sky. David Grush is, by all accounts, a highly credentialed, deeply vetted former senior intelligence official within the United States military and intelligence community. Think about that for a moment. This is a man who dedicated a significant portion of his life to serving this country, operating within the very systems designed to protect its most sensitive information. His journey starts relatable enough. A young man from a blue-collar family in Pittsburgh, admiring those in uniform, wanting to be part of something bigger than himself. He earned an Air Force scholarship, studied physics, a hard science demanding rigorous, evidence-based thinking, and then commissioned into the Air Force. He served 14 years on active duty. We've seen photographs of him, a proud officer, receiving promotions while deployed overseas. He spent time on the ground in places like Afghanistan, serving in difficult and dangerous environments, the kind of service many veterans watching right now understand profoundly. He makes it clear his love for this country remains absolute. This isn't someone with an axe to grind against the system he served. He speaks like a patriot. After his time in more kinetic roles, his career path took him deeper into the heart of the intelligence world back in Washington, D.C. He spent years as an intelligence officer, eventually reaching a significant position within the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, or NGA, one of the key pillars of the U.S. intelligence apparatus. There, he tells us, he co-led the analysis of unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAP. That's the government's current term for what many of us grew up calling UFOs. Think about the gravity of that role. He wasn't just looking at satellite photos. He was tasked by the government itself to help understand these mysterious encounters. His background in physics, combined with his extensive intelligence experience, made him a unique asset. He says some of the highest officials in the Department of Defense and the wider intelligence community would call on him for advice regarding some of the most complex and challenging intelligence targets the nation faced. This speaks volumes about the level of trust placed in him. To operate at that level, you need more than just smarts. You need integrity, discretion, and the ability to handle the nation's most guarded secrets. He held extremely high security clearances, the kind that require multiple, intensive background checks, and, as he mentions, passing multiple polygraph examinations, lie detector tests. He was read into programs that required the utmost confidence. He was, in his own words, extremely highly cleared. It's important to stress News Nation, the organization that conducted the extensive interview we're drawing from, took the steps to verify his credentials. They confirmed his service record, his roles within the intelligence community. So, we're not dealing with an unknown quantity here. We're dealing with a decorated veteran, a career intelligence professional with a background in hard science, someone who was trusted implicitly with information few people ever get close to. Why is all this background so important? Because it sets the stage. It establishes the credibility of the source before we grapple with the weight of his testimony. When someone with this kind of background, this level of access, this documented history of service and trustworthiness, decides to step forward, risking his reputation, his career, potentially even his safety, to bring information to light, well, it compels us to listen. It compels us to ask, what could possibly be so important, so earth-shattering, that a man like David Grush felt he had no choice but to become a whistleblower? What secrets did he uncover during his time analyzing UAPs for the highest levels of the U.S. government? That's the question that hangs in the air, and it's the path we'll start to explore next. So, we've established who David Grush is, a man deeply embedded within the U.S. intelligence apparatus, trusted with the nation's secrets, possessing a background in both military service and hard science. We left off asking, what could possibly lead such a man to risk everything and come forward? The answer begins, according to Grush, after 2019, when he was brought into the fold of the official UAP Task Force. Remember those videos released by the Navy showing unexplained objects? That was part of the impetus for forming this task force, a serious effort, at least on paper, to get to the bottom of these phenomena. With his high-level clearances, Grush says he had the authorization to go anywhere, ask anything, and be read into any program necessary for his investigation. He was positioned, theoretically, to uncover the truth, whatever it might be. But here's where the story takes a sharp, unsettling turn. Grush claims that this official task force, the very body created by the government to investigate UAPs, was deliberately stonewalled. He says they were refused access, denied information, specifically concerning what he describes as a long-standing, very broad crash retrieval program. Now, let's pause on that term, crash retrieval. What exactly does he mean? He's explicit. He's talking about retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles. Let that sink in. Not weather balloons, not foreign drones, not experimental U.S. aircraft. He means, quite literally, spacecraft from another species, as he puts it. Vehicles of exotic, non-human origin that have either crashed or landed right here on Earth. This is the heart of his bombshell claim. When asked directly If the U.S. possesses spacecraft from another species, his answer is a simple, chilling, "We do." And when pressed on how many, he doesn't offer a specific number, but replies, "Quite a number." He describes the reaction many of us might feel. His own initial thought was that it was totally nuts, that perhaps he was being deceived, that it was some elaborate ruse. It sounds like something straight out of science fiction, doesn't it? The idea that not only are we not alone, but that physical craft, technology from somewhere else, is actually here, in our possession. And it gets even more profound, almost harder to grasp. He goes on to say that when you recover something that has landed or crashed, naturally, sometimes you encounter the occupants. He states, sometimes you encounter, dead pilots. He acknowledges how fantastical it sounds, but maintains, believe it or not, it's true. Imagine being a career intelligence officer trained in analysis and skepticism, uncovering that. It's the kind of revelation that would challenge anyone's understanding of reality itself. He mentions having sleepless nights, and frankly, who wouldn't? So, how did he move from thinking it was nuts to being convinced enough to become a whistleblower? He explains it wasn't just one thing, but a convergence of evidence that he found impossible to ignore. He emphasizes that he started as a non-believer, approaching the problem as a hardcore physics guy and intel officer with a high BS factor, as he puts it. He says people started confiding in him. Importantly, these weren't anonymous sources or low-level functionaries. He speaks of plenty of current former senior intelligence officers, many of whom he had known for almost his entire career. People he trusted, people operating at the highest echelons. These individuals, he claims, approached him, told him they were part of this hidden program, even gave him the program's name, one he'd never encountered despite his broad access. They provided him with detailed oral testimony, backed up, he says, by documents and other proof confirming the existence of this secret crash retrieval effort that the official UAP Task Force was deliberately kept ignorant of. He stresses his methodical approach, interviewing people who didn't know each other, ensuring this wasn't some coordinated deception or a cover story for a different secret program. Interestingly, when discussing the potential origin of these craft and their occupants, Grush often uses the term non-human intelligence, or NHI, rather than simply saying aliens or extraterrestrials. Why? He explains it stems from a scientific caution. He doesn't want to necessarily denote a specific origin, suggesting we might not have all the data to say they're definitely coming from Planet X or Star System Y. He brings his physics background into play here, floating a truly mind-bending possibility grounded in theoretical physics, specifically quantum mechanics and string theory. He suggests these NHI might not be traveling light years through space as we traditionally conceive it, but could potentially be originating from a different physical dimension, right alongside our own, but normally inaccessible or invisible to us. He talks about higher spatial dimensions, concepts physicists explore when dealing with high-energy particle collisions. He theorizes that what we experience as linear time might be a physical dimension in that higher dimensional space, allowing for travel or interaction that seems impossible within our standard four-dimensional understanding. 3 space, 1 time. He's careful to state this is a theory, not proven fact, but it informs his cautious language about non-human rather than strictly extraterrestrial origins. It's a concept that stretches the mind, suggesting reality might be far stranger and more complex than we ever imagined. But regardless of whether they come from across the galaxy or another dimension, the core allegation remains. They are here, we have their technology, and according to Grush, the government has gone to extraordinary lengths to hide this fact. He alleges a sophisticated disinformation campaign has been actively waged against the American public for decades. Think about how UFOs have been treated in popular culture, often with ridicule associated with tinfoil hats and fringe beliefs. Grush suggests this wasn't just societal dismissal, but potentially a deliberate strategy involving sophisticated intelligence tradecraft to stigmatize the topic, to ensure that anyone who came forward with genuine information would be immediately dismissed as crazy or unreliable. He argues this campaign is extremely unethical and immoral. If he's right, it means the public hasn't just been kept in the dark. They've been actively misled, manipulated on a massive scale about one of the most fundamental questions of human existence. This is a heavy accusation, suggesting a level of secrecy and manipulation that goes far beyond simply classifying sensitive military projects. It points towards a hidden reality, managed in the shadows, while the rest of us were encouraged to look the other way or simply laugh it off. Hearing these claims, retrieved non-human craft, even deceased pilots, confirmed by high-level insiders, naturally leads to the question, how long? How long could something this monumental possibly be kept under wraps? According to David Grush, this isn't some recent phenomenon that started with those Navy videos a few years back. He alleges this goes back decades, nearly a century, in fact. He speaks of a cover-up stretching back roughly 90 years, originating well before the Roswell incident that many of us associate with the dawn of the modern UFO era. He points to a specific, startling event, long before most Americans had ever heard the term flying saucer. He claims the very first recovery of one of these non-human vehicles occurred in 1933 in Magenta, Italy. Think about that time frame. Europe in the grip of rising fascism, years before the Second World War truly exploded. He asserts that Benito Mussolini's government recovered a partially intact craft and moved it to a secure airbase, where it remained for the duration of the fascist regime. Now, here's where the story takes another almost unbelievable turn. Grush alleges that the Vatican became involved. He claims that Pope Pius XII knew about the Italians' discovery and, through back channels during the chaos of World War II around 1944-1945, alerted the Americans. The implication is staggering. Not only did Mussolini's government have a craft, but the Vatican was aware and played a role in ensuring the United States ultimately scooped it, taking possession of this alleged non-human technology. When asked directly if the Vatican, the Catholic Church, knows about the existence of non-human intelligence on this planet, Grush's answer is a simple, certainly. That adds a whole different dimension to the idea of long-held secrets, suggesting knowledge potentially resided within powerful institutions beyond just governments. Of course, no discussion of crashed UFOs is complete without mentioning Roswell, New Mexico in 1947. That event is burned into the collective memory. The story of something falling out of the sky, the initial reports of a flying disc, quickly retracted and replaced by the explanation of a weather balloon. Over the decades, the Air Force added layers to the story. Spy balloons, crash test dummies used in high-altitude parachute tests. Many of you might remember the debates, the books, the documentaries, trying to piece together what really happened in the New Mexico desert. Grush, while stating he's currently restricted from revealing specific details he knows about the Roswell craft itself, offers a scathing assessment of the official explanations. He calls the Air Force's analysis, including their lengthy 1994 report intended to debunk the incident once and for all, a total hack job. He argues that anyone with analytical skills can see they were deliberately conflating different events, mogul balloons, crash test dummies, to explain away the phenomenon and simply claiming the townsfolk who were eyewitnesses were totally imagining things. He firmly believes that entire report was concocted just to disinform, fitting squarely into the pattern of the sophisticated disinformation campaign he alleges has been running for decades. It begs the question, if these craft are so advanced, why are they crashing at all? It seems counterintuitive. Grush addresses this directly. He points out that even our own advanced human technology isn't perfect. Airplanes crash, cars crash, complex systems fail. He suggests that just because an intelligence is highly advanced doesn't mean their operations are always flawless. Using Air Force terminology, he speculates that some small percentage of their sorties might simply meet an unfortunate operational conclusion. It's a pragmatic perspective, suggesting that occasional failures might be expected, even from incredibly sophisticated non-human technology. So, if these things have been recovered over such a long period, what are they actually like? What have we learned from them according to Grush? He speaks about the materials these craft are made of, describing properties that defy conventional understanding and point strongly, in his view, to a non-human origin. He mentions very specific characteristics he was briefed on, things like isotopic ratios, isotopes being different versions of the same chemical element like carbon-12 and carbon-14. He claims these ratios in the materials are at levels that would have to be deliberately engineered, not naturally occurring. He talks about arrangements of extremely heavy atomic metals, elements high up on the periodic table, combined in ways that we simply don't understand, creating emergent properties, behaviors or characteristics that arise from the complex combination itself. He describes a very strange mix of elements. When pressed if he's absolutely sure these materials are not of this earth, his answer is unequivocal. Yeah, they're sophisticatedly engineered, certainly not by humans. He does concede that the U.S. government has managed to glean some insights from studying these materials, potentially for military applications. However, he immediately pivots to what he sees as a profound ethical failing. He finds it totally nuts that the vast potential held within this recovered technology is being hoarded, kept secret within compartmentalized programs, likely benefiting only a select few defense contractors and government elements. He envisions a world where broad research into these findings could solve fundamental problems for humanity, issues related to propulsion, clean energy sources, revolutionary new materials that could dramatically improve quality of life for everyone. Instead, he sees this potential locked away, inhibiting progress, possibly due to desires for military advantage or perhaps fear of societal upheaval. He describes interviewing personnel who worked directly on these retrieved craft, people who described seeing tangible technical craft up close. Some of these craft, they told him, were enormous. He uses the example of football field kind of size. He recounts his own internal struggle listening to these first-hand accounts, weighing if these highly cleared individuals were lying, suffering psychotic breaks, or telling the unbelievable, crazy but true reality of what they experienced. This secrecy, this withholding of potentially world-altering knowledge and technology derived from non-human sources, forms a core part of his indictment of the decades-long program he claims to have uncovered. So, if David Grush's account holds true, that we've recovered craft not of this earth, possessed materials beyond our current understanding, and known about this for the better part of a century, the unavoidable question becomes, why? Why the intense multi-generational secrecy? Why the alleged elaborate disinformation campaigns, the ridicule, the denial? Grush offers some chilling potential answers that paint a picture less about protecting a fragile public and more about control and power. He suggests the motivation might be rooted in a desire for what he terms feudalistic dominance. The idea that possessing such radically advanced asymmetric technology provides an unparalleled military edge. It becomes about who can control this power, perhaps fueling, as he puts it, the war machine, rather than sharing potential benefits for peaceful progress. While some might argue secrecy was initially born from a genuine fear of societal panic or economic collapse back in the early days, Grush seems to imply that, over time, it morphed into something more about maintaining control over revolutionary technology and information. And the methods used to maintain this secrecy, according to Grush, have ventured into deeply unethical and potentially illegal territory. We touched on the ethical concern of withholding potentially world-changing technologies, clean energy, advanced propulsion, new materials, from the public and the broader scientific community who could develop them for the common good. But his allegations go much further. He describes a system where private defense contractors, specific aerospace companies, are allegedly given privileged sole source access to recovered non-human materials and craft. He finds it highly unethical that these select corporations can then potentially analyze this technology, develop insights, and effectively sell those advancements back to the government, profiting immensely from a secret derived from non-human sources, all while the public remains unaware. The human cost, he suggests, extends even to those working inside these clandestine programs. He speaks of being briefed on personnel who suffered physical harm, injuries resulting from handling or being near these unknown technologies. He mentions the potential nuclear, radiological, and biological risks involved in dealing with complete unknowns, stating that many individuals literally suffered physically because of their service within these secret efforts. Beyond the physical toll, Grush makes a direct accusation of financial misconduct. He states unequivocally that he saw substantive evidence that white-collar crime was committed in connection with these hidden programs. This suggests potential illegal misuse of funds, corruption, or other financial wrongdoing tied to managing this immense secret. Then comes the darkest corner of his testimony. When asked if people have been harmed or even killed to protect this secret over the decades, Grush becomes somber. While careful not to repeat specific details he deems really un-American, He confirms that based on conversations with individuals involved in the programs, this was an ongoing concern. He explicitly states his strong suspicion that, yes, people likely have been murdered over the years as part of the effort to maintain absolute secrecy. This is a horrifying allegation, suggesting the cover-up wasn't just about lies and misdirection, but potentially involved the most extreme measures to silence leaks and maintain control. It paints a picture of a secret deemed so important that even fundamental human rights and laws were allegedly disregarded to protect it. This intense desire for secrecy isn't happening in a vacuum, according to Grush. He asserts that the United States is not the only player on this field. He claims our geopolitical rivals, implying nations like Russia and China, have also encountered non-human intelligence and likely possess their own crash retrieval programs. They too, he suggests, are secretly exploiting this technology, potentially for military advantage. This creates, in his words, a multi-decade Cold War happening entirely behind the scenes, a clandestine arms race focused on understanding and leveraging technology far beyond our own. Many of you lived through the tensions of the original Cold War with the Soviet Union. Imagine a similar, perhaps even higher stakes competition playing out in total secrecy over technology that isn't even human. Grush argues this hidden competition, fueled by secrecy, is incredibly dangerous. If one nation, particularly an adversary, were to achieve a significant breakthrough in understanding or replicating this technology, while others remained in the dark, it could be profoundly destabilizing for global security. The secrecy prevents open dialogue, international cooperation, or any kind of checks and balances that might normally apply to potentially world-altering technologies. When asked why Russia or China haven't simply revealed the truth if they also know, Grush speculates they likely face the same dilemma as the U.S., fearing the potential socio-economic destabilization within their own societies if such a reality were suddenly confirmed. Interestingly, he points to a real-world document, a 1971 treaty between the U.S. and the USSR aimed at reducing the risk of nuclear war, which includes specific language about notifying each other regarding unidentified objects detected near nuclear facilities or interfering with communications. He suggests this treaty might have been used as a tacit acknowledgement, a way for the superpowers to de-escalate potential conflicts arising from encounters with genuine UAP, essentially saying, "That wasn't us. Don't shoot." Against this backdrop of decades-long secrecy, alleged crimes, and a hidden Cold War, stands the official position of the U.S. government, and here the narrative clashes dramatically. Just weeks before Grush's interview aired, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, the physicist heading the Pentagon's official UAP investigation office, called ARO, All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, testified before Congress. His public statement was clear. ARO had found no credible evidence thus far of extraterrestrial activity, off-world technology, or objects that defy the known laws of physics. He attributed unresolved cases primarily to a lack of data. This is a direct, unambiguous contradiction to nearly everything David Grush alleges. How does Grush respond? He says he knows Dr. Kirkpatrick personally, had even expressed some of his concerns and findings to him about a year prior, but Kirkpatrick allegedly didn't follow up. Grush expresses hope that Kirkpatrick will do the right thing, suggesting that the head of the very office tasked by Congress to find the truth should be able to make the same discoveries Grush did. The implication is stark. Either Grush is fabricating an incredibly elaborate story, or the official investigation led by Dr. Kirkpatrick is somehow missing, or perhaps even deliberately overlooking, the evidence Grush claims is hidden within these deeper, compartmentalized programs. This leaves us, the public, caught in the middle of a profound conflict between a high-level decorated whistleblower and the official government narrative. So, we're left standing at a crossroads, aren't we? On one side, we have the extraordinary, potentially world-altering testimony of David Grush, a decorated veteran, a trusted former intelligence insider. On the other, we have the official denials from the very government he served. It forces us to confront difficult questions about credibility, not just of the institutions involved, but of Grush himself. Is it possible, as some might suggest, that despite his background, he's somehow deluded? Could he have misinterpreted information, or even, as intelligence agencies sometimes do, been fed disinformation himself? These are fair questions, and Grush addressed them head-on. He states clearly he has no history of mental illness, no psychosis or delusions. He emphasizes he wasn't a disgruntled employee looking for revenge. He resigned voluntarily because he felt he hit an impasse trying to address the wrongdoing from within, believing he could make more difference speaking out. He was acutely aware, he says, of the possibility that he himself could be a target of disinformation. Was this some kind of ruse against me? He insists he spent years being incredibly methodical, cross-referencing information from highly credentialed sources who didn't know each other, specifically to ensure the basic facts were solid before he took the monumental step of filing an official whistleblower complaint. And why did he take that step? He wasn't paid for the interview. He claims no desire for fame or fortune. His stated motivations sound like values many of us hold dear: a sense of service, patriotism, a belief in speaking truth to power, however difficult. He talks about not wanting to reach his later years, 60, 70 years old, filled with regret, haunted by that feeling of could have, should have, would have, if he had stayed silent when he believed he saw profound wrongdoing. He felt he had a duty to act, regardless of the immense personal and professional risk involved. Now, about that whistleblower complaint, this is perhaps one of the most crucial pieces of this puzzle currently available to the public. He didn't just talk to journalists. He filed a formal complaint with the Inspector General of the intelligence community. This is the internal watchdog, the official body tasked with investigating waste, fraud, abuse, and crucially, credible allegations of urgent concern within the vast U.S. intelligence network. According to Grush, and importantly, later confirmed by news reports citing congressional sources, the Inspector General reviewed his detailed claims, the same claims we've discussed, likely with far more classified specifics, interviewed him and other witnesses, and made a formal determination. They found his complaint urgent and credible. Let's linger on that word, credible. This wasn't dismissed out of hand. An official investigatory body, after reviewing classified information Grush provided internally, deemed his allegations credible enough to be formally transmitted to the intelligence committees in Congress. While this isn't the smoking gun proof many would understandably want to see publicly, It's a powerful indicator that his claims are being taken very seriously indeed within official channels, adding significant weight to his testimony. Beyond the actions of governments, Grush's testimony also forces us to ponder the nature and intentions of the non-human intelligence itself. If they are here, if they possess such advanced technology, what do they want? Grush wisely cautions against a common assumption that incredible advancement automatically equates to kindness or benevolence. He points to evidence that suggests, from our human perspective at least, some NHI activity appears malevolent. He cites their probing of sensitive nuclear weapon sites, which could be interpreted as reconnaissance or even preparation, and the witness testimony he gathered, including those deeply disturbing accounts suggesting humans may have been harmed or killed by NHI in certain instances. It raises a chilling paradox. If they are so advanced and potentially hostile, why haven't they simply wiped us out or taken over? Grush doesn't offer easy answers, but implies a complex dynamic we don't fully understand. Perhaps there are different groups with different agendas. Perhaps there are rules of engagement we can't perceive. Or perhaps, as he also speculates when asked how NHI might react to humanity learning of their presence, they are somewhat neutral observers regarding our own affairs. He notes they've been around for decades, witnessing humanity engage in genocide, war, and self-destruction, seemingly without large-scale intervention. Maybe, he suggests, they simply allow us our free will, for better or worse. So, what does David Grush hope comes from all this? His goal isn't chaos or collapse. He advocates for transparency, for bringing this topic out of the shadows. He believes the technology and knowledge gleaned from studying NHI craft could offer immense benefits, solutions for energy, propulsion, material science. He uses the analogy of nuclear physics. The existence of nuclear weapons is acknowledged, even if the specific designs remain top secret. The fundamental science, however, is unclassified and studied openly in academia worldwide. Why, he asks, should the potentially even more fundamental science related to NHI, astrophysics, astrobiology, new physics, be suppressed? He has offered to further brief any elected officials or government leaders who have the necessary clearances and the will to listen. And on a more philosophical level, he expresses a hope, perhaps a fragile one, that confronting this reality, the knowledge that we are part of a larger, stranger cosmos, might actually serve to unite us. In a world often fractured by division, maybe realizing we are all part of one human family facing an unknown frontier could help us find common ground. As we sit here in the spring of 2025, this story is far from over. David Grush has presented his case, backed by his credentials and the significant finding from the Inspector General. The official denials remain. We, the public, are left to weigh the information. It's a story that challenges our fundamental understanding of the world. News Nation, who brought us the interview, was careful to state they confirmed Grush's background, but they have not seen or verified the alleged proof he provided internally. Ultimately, you have to decide what feels true, what seems plausible. Consider the source, a decorated intelligence insider risking everything. Consider the claims, decades of secrecy, recovered non-human technology, active disinformation. Consider the official counter-narrative, and consider that finding of Credible, from the intelligence community's own watchdog. It's a lot to process. There are no easy answers today, but perhaps the most important thing is to keep an open mind, to think critically, and to continue seeking the truth, whatever it may turn out to be. The question remains, possibly the biggest question humanity has ever faced. Are we alone? David Grush believes he knows the answer, and he's sounded the alarm. What happens next remains to be seen. Thank you for joining us today as we explored this complex and compelling story. We hope you'll continue the conversation and join us again as we delve into other intriguing topics right here. And so, we reach the end of our deep dive into the extraordinary testimony of David Grush. Thank you for joining us on this journey through claims that touch upon the very foundations of our reality. We've examined the background of the man himself, a decorated intelligence insider, and explored his startling allegations, recovered non-human craft, a decades-long cover-up sanctioned at the highest levels, potentially world-changing technology kept hidden, and even hints of darker activities done in the name of secrecy. We stand now, as we often do with such profound mysteries, facing a stark conflict. On one hand, the detailed, internally consistent account of a whistleblower whose formal complaint was deemed urgent and credible by the intelligence community's own Inspector General. On the other, the continued official denials from the institutions he implicates. Definitive, public proof remains elusive, leaving each of us to weigh the evidence presented, consider the source, and wrestle with the implications. What's undeniable is the significance of the questions raised. If even a fraction of what Mr. Grush alleges is true, it reshapes everything. Our history, our place in the cosmos, our future. It challenges us to think beyond borders, beyond ideologies, perhaps even beyond our current scientific paradigms. As we conclude this series, we encourage you not necessarily to believe or disbelieve outright, but to remain curious, to think critically about the information you receive from all sources, and perhaps most importantly, to discuss these monumental questions thoughtfully and respectfully with each other. Here on this channel, we'll continue striving to bring you explorations of complex and compelling topics like this one. Thank you once again for your time and attention. We hope to see you again soon.